Ghosts were once something to be feared, and for some people today they still are. But in the 19th century, unseen spirits took a more benign, even poignant shape with the emergence of spiritualism. Spiritualist mediums claimed to be able to communicate with the invisible dead through coded raps and knocks, or spelling out of messages letter by letter, or even through the actual manifestation of people who claimed to be spirits. It all sounds highly unscientific, but in fact, as science began to grapple ever more with the invisible during this time, its influence on spiritualism was complicated. I'm making a visit to find out more about it. I'm here in smart South Kensington, and I figure I must have come to my destination because here on the wall is a blue plaque. It's to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author and spiritualist, because this is the wall of the College of Psychic Studies. Founded in 1884, it's one of the centres for the exploration of psychical and spiritualist phenomena. And I've come to talk to the archivist of the college, Leslie Price, about the relationship between science and spiritualism in the 19th and early 20th centuries. We're here in the College of Psychic Studies, and I'm surrounded by spirit photographs. They're sort of postcard-sized photographs taken in the 19th century, mostly, of portraits, but with other apparitions in them, ghostly figures mostly. Leslie, what is the purpose of this place?
The college is a place where people can find out more about mediumship, healing, remote viewing, tarot, palmistry, and a variety of psychic arts. The college has never been a dogmatic organisation, but we do tend to be quite sympathetic to people who have psychic experiences and want to find out what's causing them and whether they can put them to any practical use.
Spiritualism emerged in the middle of the 19th century, just when science was thriving. People were starting to uncover all kinds of mysteries about electricity and magnetism. It seems kind of surprising, perhaps, and contradictory that those two should coexist, but actually that's not so surprising at all, is it?
No, there's always been the hope that technological means would help mediumship. And when people read in their newspapers about advances in telegraphy, and then the discovery of radio, and then the realization that radioactivity existed, this gave hope to people in the psychic field that the kind of forces they were studying would soon be scientifically verified.
The telegraph was invented in the 1830s and proved that communication with unseen presences was possible. It involved sending electrical pulses along wires tapped out in Morse code. Transatlantic telegraph lines were laid in the 1850s, and it's hard for us to imagine now how extraordinary it was that one could communicate instantly with a person hundreds of miles away. Something that magicians claimed to be able to do in the Middle Ages with the aid of demons. It turns out that the pioneers of telegraphy, such as Cromwell Varley, were fascinated by the spirit world. Richard Noakes is a senior lecturer in history at Exeter University.
Cromwell Fleetwood Varley was a British electrical engineer who made his name by being involved with the great transatlantic telegraph cables. In his experiences of sending intelligence from one side of the Atlantic to the other, he came to appreciate that this extraordinary form of communication using electricity made less implausible the idea of using a subtle force, perhaps electrical, to communicate between the world of the living and the world of the dead. And he literally used to describe the process of communicating with the world of spirits as a kind of form of telegraphy.
Shortly after telegraphy spanned the Atlantic Ocean, long-distance telecommunication became even more remarkable and magical. In the middle of the 19th century, the Scottish scientist James Clerk Maxwell showed that light is a wave of oscillating electric and magnetic fields. he and others thought that there was an invisible, intangible fluid pervading all of space that carried these electromagnetic waves, just as water carries ocean waves. It was called the ether. Maxwell's theories predicted radio waves. Within a decade of them being discovered in 1887, these waves were being used to send messages invisibly through the air. This idea seemingly lent some support not just to spiritualism, but to a whole range of paranormal and psychic phenomena such as telepathy and telekinesis, moving objects with the power of the mind. As an article in The Spectator magazine put it in 1892,
why, in fact, if one wire can talk to another without connections, save through ether, should not mind talk to mind without any wire at all?
Richard Noakes.
Radio gives scientific credibility to the idea that mind can exist beyond the material brain, that the mind might be able to transmit information through space to another mind thousands of miles away. So radio makes the invisible medium of the ether a very real space for information flow. And for spiritualists and for psychical researchers, that's very, very welcome, because for decades they had been saying the invisible ether is filled with voices. It's filled with voices of the dead and the living. And the discovery of radio inspires a lot of people to pursue spiritualism and psychical research.
One of the key scientific investigators of psychic phenomena in the late 19th century was the chemist and entrepreneur William Crookes, and he devised instruments to try to measure the subtle, invisible forces that he thought might count for psychic phenomena like telekinesis. Now, we're standing in a seance room in the College of Psychic Studies, and in front of us we've got an unusual-looking glass device that Crookes devised. It's a bit like a light bulb, but inside the bulb is a little windmill with 4 vanes, a black on one side and silver on the other. Leslie, can you tell me what this does?
Well, this is a radiometer, and it's possible, of course, to make these vanes move around. Now, why this should happen was a cause of great scientific argument. Is this done by light, or is this done by heat? It is explicable in entirely natural terms, but at the same time as Crookes was inventing devices like this, he was also engaged in the study of mediums. This is around the year 1870. He postulated that something called psychic force was being emanated by mediums, and this was causing a wide variety of phenomena to take place, from lights appearing to apparitions being seen and felt.
Crookes also used electrical and telegraphic technologies to subject spiritualist mediums to what he at least considered to be rigorous scientific tests. Some believe that Crookes was just a credulous dupe, but he was a serious scientist, famous for discovering a new chemical element called thallium. He was also an expert in the study of mysterious invisible rays called cathode rays, which streamed from hot, electrically charged metal plates. It was while investigating cathode rays in the 1890s that German scientist Wilhelm Röntgen discovered another invisible ray which could pass right through solid matter. For want of a better term, he simply called them X-rays. It was soon discovered that they could be used to peer inside our bodies, revealing images of our skeletons like a presentiment of death. Richard Noakes.
The evidence that Röntgen publishes of a form of light that is invisible, that can be used to peer into the inside of human bodies, is absolutely fascinating for spiritualists, because it suggests that there are powers in the universe that can look through matter, that can look through the material world. So you have X-ray theories of clairvoyance or X-ray theories of telepathy.
At the end of the 19th century, invisible rays seemed to be everywhere. X-rays stimulated experiments that led to the discovery of strange rays emanating from uranium minerals, which Marie and Pierre Curie christened radioactivity. This too fed back into the world of spirits.
The discoveries in radioactivity are very significant for debates about spiritualism and psychic phenomena in general, because radioactivity shatters the idea that atoms are impenetrable, are indivisible. So the foundations of the worldview that the world consists of hard atoms and energy and that's it, are now being questioned by the discovery that atoms break apart. Now this is wonderful news for a whole series of people, spiritualists, psychic researchers and others who have long maintained that there is more in the world than just hard matter. There needs to be spirit and mind.
The late 19th and early 20th centuries were the heyday of so-called psychical research. It has never yet produced any hard evidence of invisible psychic forces or powers, but there seems little doubt that it was stimulated, not challenged, by the science of its time, which confirmed that there was more to the world than meets the eye. In the next episode, we'll see how that turned out to be true in another respect too, in the world of the invisibly small.